Hey, students. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about as we're jumping into this semester is context, purpose, and audience. And the great thing about these key terms is these don't just pertain to writing, they also pertain to reading. And that's one of our major focuses for this support class is how do we critically read? How do we look at critical text and find the thesis and find the main topics and analyze a work holistically. And so we're going to talk about these key terms today, and then we're going to revisit them throughout this semester. So, when we're talking about context, the definition of context is the setting within a work of writing and where it's situated. Context provides meaning and clarity to the intended message. Context clues in a literary work create a relationship between the writer and the reader, giving a deeper understanding of the intent and the direction of the writing. Literary context is background information or circumstances that you provide to inform why something is taking place. Context can also be the backstory of a character provided to inform their behavior or their personality. And there's four types. There's historical context, there's physical context, there's cultural context, and there's situational context. And guys, really and truly, when we talk about context and context clues, what we're really thinking about is we're looking at something holistically, okay? And in a YouTube that we're going to watch after this lecture, what you have to think about is what is the bigger picture here? For example, if you're reading a news source, what time period is this taking place in? Why might this have been going on, or why might this have been written or said during this time period? Where is it taking place? What physical area? Does it change if it's in the north versus the south? Does it change whether it's on ABC or CNN? Culture and situational. And again, we could refer back to news stations and media outlets and just looking at things holistically and asking, why is this message the way it is? And what do we need to think about in terms of how we receive that message? So, why is context important when we're writing? The role of context is to bridge the gap between the authors and their audiences, strengthening reader comprehension and preventing miscommunication for the writer's intent. It's not enough to know that a particular event is occurring. Readers also need to know why. So, there again lies that big question, the why. For example, the themes of William Golding's Lord of the Flies, in which a group of boys is stranded on a deserted island, becomes increasingly violent as they grow fearful of this big, dangerous creature, which makes sense when we think about the author's experiences of World War II. So, again, looking at a story and thinking, when did this take place? What else was going on in the world? Why did this take place? What circumstances or problems were coexisting with this story? So let's also talk about purpose. An author's purpose or his reason for intent of writing. That purpose can be to amuse, it can be to persuade, to inform, or to give satire to a certain condition or time period. An author writes with one of four purposes in mind. To relate a story or to recount events, an author uses narrative writing. To tell what something looks like, feels like, sounds like, interactions between the thing that they're focused on, that's what we call descriptive writing. To convince a reader to believe an idea or to take a course of action, we call that persuasive writing. To inform or teach the reader is called expository writing. An author's purpose is reflected in the way that you see them write about the topic. For instance, if their purpose is to amuse, they're going to use jokes or anecdotes, or it's going to be casual. They're going to really try to engage with the audience. Clues to an author's purpose may be found in their titles and their prefaces or the author's background and understanding and knowing more about the author. Guys, when we talk about purpose, okay, and this is in reading or writing, when we're reading a work and we're saying, okay, what is the purpose? The real core value there is, why did they write this? What was their end goal? Okay. So let's take this in the context of speakers. Okay. When we have a speaker who is doing a comedy show, all right, their goal is to get the audience to laugh, to engage, to elbow whoever's sitting on the side of them, and to really create this laughter in this community. That's the purpose of going to a comedy. However, if we're going to a TED talk about a certain um, social issue or something problematic going on in our country, that is not necessarily going to create amusement. That is going to be informative or persuasive, right? Trying to get the audience to feel what you're feeling or to view a problem the way you do it. So purpose is really the intent. It's why, what was the motive behind the writing? The next thing we need to talk about is audience. When you're in the process of writing a paper, it's easy to forget that you are writing for somebody. Whether you've thought about this consciously or not, you are always writing to an audience. Sometimes you know the individuals who are in the audience, and sometimes you're really just writing it for yourself. Keeping your audience in mind while you write helps you make good decisions about what kind of material to include, how to organize those ideas, and how to best support your argument. To illustrate the real meaning and impact of audience, imagine that you're writing a letter to your grandmother and you're telling her about your first month of college and your experiences. What details would you include? What stories would you tell? What things are you going to leave out? But now imagine that you're writing on that same topic to your best friend, someone who you're super close with and who you share everything with. Unless you have an extremely cool grandma who you're very close with, it's likely that the content is going to look different, right? Maybe to your best friend, you're talking about a date that you went on, or a party you went to, or a crazy prank that you pulled. Okay. But to grandma, you're probably going to talk about the A that you got on that English paper, or your academics, or your studies. So when we think about audience and we think about who are we writing this for, it's going to alter everything about our writing. So now we're going to take a look at a short YouTube clip that's going to kind of take all of this into real life and real world perspective. If you have any questions about this content, please don't hesitate to reach out. And we're going to be revisiting these key terms on and off all semester long.